Okay, so I've been hearing a lot about this Boycade Packer anti-gay speech that happened last conference, and I'm reading this off of a script, which is something I normally don't do, so that's why I'm constantly looking away from the camera. I've listened to it, and I have two major problems with his speech. First of all, he points out that we're trying to pass laws that go against nature, and that passing laws against nature is something we can't do. He compares this to voting against the law of gravity and seeing how well that goes. However, it doesn't really work that way. First of all, the law against gay marriage is not a law of nature or even of God, but a law of man. Man created it. It's not something, that is divinely handed down. But even if it were a will of God that gay people not be married, as some people believe it is, it's still not a law of nature. Nowhere in nature will you see animals or trees being ostracized for being gay and wanting to get married. Of course, nowhere in nature will you see animals getting married at all, but that's not really the point. Laws of nature are not the same as laws of God, regardless of whether or not you believe in God. It comes down to the simple fact that God can change his laws and nature cannot. At no point in history will nature ever say something like, I'm sick of gravity, let's do away with it. Whereas conversely, God can change his laws. He can say, I don't think we should stone children to death anymore for disobeying their parents. Let's do away with that. Also, at no point will God say, I hate the color green. Let's make grass blue now. It just won't happen. It's not something that, regardless of whether you believe in God, he will do, because it just doesn't seem to be within the realm of possibility. You won't wake up one day and find blue grass outside. So, that being said, the other thing which I find very odd is the thing that Packer says towards the end of his speech. He says this: "We will hold to the laws and principles of the gospel. If they are misunderstood, even innocently or willfully, so be it. We cannot change, we will not change the moral standard. We quickly lose our way when we disobey the will of God." However, this quote raises two big problems for me. Firstly, who exactly is he talking about in his quote? Is he talking about the LDS Church innocently or willfully misunderstanding the laws and principles of the gospel? Or is he talking about people outside the church, gay people, for example, as the rest, people misunderstanding the laws of the gospel? I seem to interpret it as him talking about the LDS Church itself, mostly because the rest of the quote refers to the church itself as well. If this is so, it raises some disturbing notions about how the church does business. It's one thing to say that it's okay for the church to innocently misunderstand the rules of the gospel. It happens all the time. But it's quite another to say it's okay for them to willingly misinterpret them. That's going under the assumption that they can look at a law and realize that the way they've interpreted it is wrong, and still interpret it the other way. So I'd really like some clarification on this as to what this quote actually means. The other thing I find interesting is that he says, "We cannot and will not change." However, this is something that's proven to be untrue. It's no secret that until 1978, African Americans were not allowed to hold priesthood in the LDS Church. That was the moral standard. Only white people can have the priesthood in the LDS Church. Then, suddenly, without any provocation or anything, Spencer W. Kimball came out one day and proclaimed that essentially God had changed his mind. He had come down from on high and told Kimball that it was suddenly okay for African Americans to hold the priesthood, despite them having been denied it for over 100 years. The notion that God shouldn't need or be able to change his mind because God is omniscient and all-seeing isn't really an argument I'm going to get into right now, but suffice it to say that it has been shown that the LDS Church can and has changed its mind in the past, from whatever the moral standard was before to something new. So you can't say that they cannot and will not change, because it's entirely possible in the future that one day God will come down and say, it's okay for gay people to get married. I like lesbians. Lesbians kick ass. So, keep that in mind. Now, Having said all this, I'm not trying to say that you should go throw stones at Boyd K. Packer. I'm sure that, all in all, he's a good man, and as far as I know, he's never actually gone and burnt any homosexuals at the stake or anything like that. But at the same time, it is quite obviously an anti-gay speech he's giving. No one can try to pretend that it is anything else, because its point is quite obviously to tell gay or curious folks in the LDS community to stop it, that they need to change their ways, and now, if they want eternal salvation. Now, it's his right to say something like this, what with free speech and all, and I think it's a bit too far to call it a hate speech, because he is simply preaching the doctrines of his church, and however right or wrong they may be, that is what he believes that his God desires. At the same time, though, the speech comes in the middle of a spike in suicide amongst gay and lesbian teens, and I wonder if this is precisely the right time to be giving a speech like this. It's kind of a case of you can, but should you? I understand that the LDS Church thinks that homosexuality is a big issue, but being that there aren't really any huge gay movements going on right now, such as Proposition 8 a while back, at least none that I'm aware of, it seems odd to choose right now as the moment to give a speech so strongly directed at gay teens and telling them that their lifestyle goes against God and nature. I'm sure there are other sides to these arguments, and I realize that I've only really covered 2 small passages from a rather long speech. However, my point here wasn't to try and say that one side or the other is right or wrong. I'm simply trying to point out the 2 things in this obviously controversial speech that I just kind of went whoa at when I heard them the first time. This is speaking from a strictly logistical point of view, and I'm trying my best not to take sides. However, if you do have a counter-argument to what I've said, feel free to let me know. I know I'm probably better than most, that anything can be taken to mean anything else. And I'd like to hear what other people have to say about this issue. And I know I've kind of sided a little bit against the LDS Church, but it's kind of hard not to. Anyway, thanks for your time. I hope you found this video enjoyable. Let me know what you think. So, yeah. Have a good day.